Hi, my name is Dave Quammen. I'm an assistant athletic trainer at the College of St. Scholastica. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Athletic Training from Minnesota State University and a Master of Science in Education with a concentration in athletic training from Old Dominion. Today we're going to talk a little bit about landing mechanics, proper and improper landing mechanics, and what some of the consequences of improper ones are. So first we're going to talk about the front view or the frontal plane, then we'll go to the sagittal or side view. So from the front, what we want is a completely upright and vertical trunk. We don't want to be side bending and we don't want to be rotating. We want to stay just our trunk right here, very vertical and upright. Next, at our feet, we want to be about shoulder width apart. We want our feet pointing straight forward. We don't want any internal rotation with our feet. We can have a little bit of external, but we want relatively feet pointing straight forward. Then moving up, we want our knees to be right in line with our toes, our knees to be in line with our hips, and our hips to be in line with our shoulders. So one straight line. What we don't want is any knee valgus, which puts a lot of stress on your ACL. So we don't want that at all. We want to stay out, perfect alignment, one straight line from our toes, knees, hips, and shoulders. From a sagittal plane view, what we want is we want to land in about 30 degrees of knee flexion. So that's about like this, and that's what we want to land in. We don't want to land upright. We want to be bent at our knees, and then we want to move through at least 90 degrees of knee flexion. So from that initial 30, we want to go to about 120, which is 90 degrees. So that's landing at 30 and then moving through 90 degrees. We also want a lot of flexion at our hip, which is this angle right here. And we want flexion at our trunk, which is if there's a vertical line extending straight up, that's how much I'm bending over. We don't want to be upright again. And then the position of our lumbar spine, we want that to be very neutral. So you can see my back is very flat here. We don't want to be arched into lordosis. That's a very common improper biomechanic of landing. What that does, that lordosis in your lumbar spine, results in internal rotation of your hips, which brings your knees into valgus, again placing a lot of stress on your ACL. So, some common mistakes people do when landing. One, from the frontal view, is that they have that knee valgus. Again, that puts a lot of stress on our ACLs. They've done research looking at the amount of knee valgus or knee abduction someone has, and they've been able to predict injuries based on how much they have. So the more knee valgus you have, again that's your kneecap going inside your big toe, the more of that you have, the higher chance you are for sustaining an ACL injury. The other big thing that people do improperly is landing very extended and upright. So they land with not much knee flexion, not very much hip flexion, or trunk flexion. Now, when we land with a lot of flexion, it allows for muscular co-contraction, so meaning the quadricep muscles and the hamstrings can work together. They increase joint contact forces, increase joint compression, and they absorb all the force from the landing. If we're landing in a very extended upright position, the muscles can't work together to absorb that force, and that force gets transferred on to the ligaments. That's when we can have issues like ACL tears, MCL tears. The other problem is people landing on their toes and staying on their toes, and that is what a strategy is when you're very quad dominant. When they've looked at landing between males and females, they've shown that females develop more quad dominant landing strategies and less hamstring activation than males do. And the problem with landing with your quads all the time is that you're going to stay extended, and the quadriceps tend to pull the tibia anteriorly. The ligament that resists that anterior tibial translation is your ACL. So if you're landing very quad dominant, very extended, your quads are pulling on your ACL, and you're also not allowing your muscles to absorb that force. So again, that force is being transferred to your ligaments. So just quick recap, we want to avoid the knee valgus. We want to avoid that extended position. We want to get a lot of flexion at our joints when we land. That helps to absorb force, helps to protect our joints, and helps keep us healthy.